I'd like to call this meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded. I would ask if there's anyone else recording this meeting. Seeing none, if you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone.
I had my chair here and it went up under the thing and squished my hand.
You okay?
Do we have anything under citizens' comments?
I do.
If you, if you would just come to the podium and state your name and your business here, that'd be great.
I couldn't get it out at first.
It'll work. It doesn't have to be too close.
Okay.
It'll work.
Good evening. Am I able to read the whole thing right now?
Sure.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jessica Smith Lerner, and I'm an 18-year Auburn resident. I have 3 daughters, 2 of whom currently attend Auburn schools, a 3rd grader at Swiss and a 10th grader at Auburn High. As you all are aware, Governor Baker lifted the mask mandate for schools, allowing each district to decide how to move forward. My intent tonight is to ask that the school committee and the Auburn schools implement a personal choice mask policy for all children beginning after the February 28th return from school vacation. Masks have been part of everyone's lives for the past 2 years, and our children have suffered the most. But masks aren't a big deal. Kids should be doing their part to slow the spread, everyone says, but they are a very big deal to our children. They interfere with every aspect of their normal social, emotional, educational development, and we're raising an entire generation in fear. Fear of each other, their families, their teachers, viruses, coughing, sneezing, fear of the world, and even the air that we breathe. The prolonged fear in these small developing brains becomes terror, and the terror becomes trauma, and the damage being done will take years to undo and may even be irreversible. The anxiety, the reluctance to go to school, the impaired learning, drowsiness, and the tripled rates of depression and suicides are only some of the negative effects of masking children. Health-wise, there are serious viral and bacterial harm that the mask impose from the constant touching, the pulling up and down, the breathing of the fluid-soaked mask for 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, with only short breaks for snack and lunch, when apparently COVID is elusive for them. The government, the CDC, public health officials, and school unions, I know, have put pressure on you districts to enforce these mandates. However, they have yet to provide any scientific evidence to support the continuous use of face masks on our children. In fact, study after study refutes the benefit of mask wearing and shows that they are ineffective and unnecessary with no mitigation of this virus that is 0.06 microns and can go through your cloth and paper masks. The survival rates for COVID in the 0 to 17 age range is 99.98. What are we actually protecting them from? The risks of dying from COVID in this age group, according to the CDC in their report from September 2021, has less of a death rate from children from flu, pneumonia, heart disease, drowning, choking, firearms, and motor vehicle accidents were actually 6 times higher. You still get in a car, you still swim, you still take them places, knowing all these risks. The risk to children is minuscule. It's not newly discovered. We've known this all along, yet we're forced to push it under the rug to satiate the political agenda going on. Further proof of this is the Test and Stay program, which is no longer running in our schools. Why? Because close to the 6,000 tests that have been performed in Auburn, only approximately 1% of the tests have come back positive. Schools are not the COVID germ-filled danger that the teacher unions and political leaders have portrayed to us. There is no reason that our children still need to wear masks when adults can crowd around bars, restaurants, theaters, concerts, sporting events, including this past weekend 70,000 plus attended Super Bowl. You 5 were elected to look out for the best interests of our children, and this is no longer in their best interest. Please stop making your fear our children's problem. It's time for the children to smile again, to laugh, to see their friends, their teachers. Give them back some normalcy they deserve. It is time. Thank you very much. I appreciate you allowing me to be up here this evening. And like Dr. Chamberlain writes in her daily emails, and I also believe better days are ahead.
Thank you. Would anyone like to comment on Ms. Lerner's? No? All right, well, thank you for speaking. Appreciate that. You're welcome to stay with us, or you can leave. It's completely up to you.
Ask if the vote will be happening tonight in regards to the February 28th extension or lift of the mandate in school.
The vote will be happening this evening.
I'd like to stay.
Yep, sure. You're welcome to stay. All right. So I would now entertain a motion to accept the minutes of 2/2/22.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Ms. Gagne actually looking to speak as a staff member.
I'm sorry.
We just have one other person in the meeting. Is that a teacher or is that a parent also, or someone also looking to speak?
Mrs. Gagné, it looks like she's out. No? Am I seeing, are you seeing someone else?
Oh. Yeah.
Yes, her teacher.
Oh, okay. No, just making sure.
Yeah, she's in the, I let her in the meeting. We expected her to come.
Okay.
No, okay, just
She doesn't
making
need
sure
to
there
speak?
wasn't.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Carry on.
All right, thank you. And we do not have student representatives this evening, so we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I normally do, we begin our series with a COVID update. I think given the information recently shared by the governor, and certainly the remarks from one of our family members, I think the primary topic for discussion this evening is the lifting of the mask mandate. Commissioner Riley came on and said as of February 28th, it will not be extended. And this is due to the high vaccination rates across the state, widespread availability of COVID-19 testing, and allowing anyone who wishes to continue to wear a mask to do so. So I thought I would just, in your packet, you'll see that I did share some information over the last 4 weeks or so related to the positivity rates that we've seen in schools, which have gone from 4.7% down to 1.4%. And as if any of you watch read my emails at the end of each day, we have seen a significant decline in the number of cases each day. In relation to statewide vaccination rates, we're a little bit higher than the state average for students aged 5 to 11 and those 16 to 19, and a little bit lower than the state average for students aged 12 to 15. The staff vaccination rates in each of our buildings range from 80% to 100% in some cases. Just so that the committee fully understands the change that the commissioner has proposed and is allowing districts to take on, some of the things that do stay in place, again, if any staff or student wishes to wear a mask, they will be fully supported to do so. Because it is a federal mandate, students will still be required to mask on the bus. And this is all if we choose to go this route and make this change, but these are some of the variables that go along with it. School health offices would still require anyone coming in to wear a mask, so we would make sure that there were masks available for those who needed them. Students and staff returning from a quarantine, right, 5 days because they had COVID, when they come back, they're supposed to mask for days 6 through 10. They do encourage unvaccinated and certainly immunocompromised folks to continue to wear a mask. And as you know, we have a number of students in our buildings who have a wide range of health issues related to that, who may want to do that. Symptomatic testing will still be available in our buildings. So if someone is in the building, doesn't feel well, they can come down and be tested. And if negative, can be allowed to stay in school. We're going to revise Zip Slip a bit because some of it is now out of date with what's happening or would be, so that would be revised. The at-home testing program is still open for anyone who would wish to, that's a rolling program. So there are a few things, and obviously, just to let the Auburn community know, we continue to encourage good hand washing and hand hygiene. We continue to have the Atmos air filters in the buildings. When weather allows, windows are open. When springtime comes, we're going to go back to having outdoor learning areas to the degree that we can. students that still get mask breaks. So a lot of those things are still in place and will continue to be in place throughout this. But I ask for your input. I will say that over the last week or so, I have spoken with our nursing staff. I have spoken with members of the AEA. I have spoken with our leadership team, and I've spoken with the Auburn Board of Health. These are all folks who have contributed to what I feel has been a successful 2 years, given the challenges that we faced. And all of these folks seem to feel like this may be the next logical step for us. As scary as it may be, as unsettling as it may be to make such a change, it is not that we cannot have masks in our schools, right? And I think to some degree that's some of the publicity that's been portrayed out there, but that's not the case. Anyone who wants to continue to wear them can, and those who choose not to don't have to. So it does provide our families with a level of choice they've not had up until this point. So I ask for your input. There are a couple of areas that folks that have expressed concern to me about this change. For instance, the band classes at Auburn High School and the middle school, where they're in a small classroom, they're using wind instruments. Might that be an area that if we chose to go to this choice for masks, might that be an area that we continue to keep masks in place? For the safety of the staff and the students, given what they're doing each time that they're in that room. And I think as principal of the preschool, if this change were to happen, I would very strongly urge my preschool families to continue to mask. Those students have not had the opportunity to be vaccinated because the children are primarily all under 5 years of age. We have a few that are 5 years old that have been vaccinated, but I look for your input, but I do believe that given the feedback I've gotten from the community, some of the groups within the community, this does seem like a next step that we as a school community are ready to take. But I put that to you, and I welcome your questions and would be happy to answer anything you may have.
I will put that right to a motion, and then we can have a discussion under a second, if that's okay with the committee.
Well, what would the motion, through the chair though, what would the motion be? Wouldn't we need to discuss what the date would be prior to having the discussion? I'm just
That would
noting
be-
it how the motion is actually, it has our dates TBD, so.
It would be the 28th, wouldn't it, based on the Department of Ed's?
I thought Desi said the 1st.
Yeah.
Oh, the 28th, the day after, February break.
Yeah, it is as of the 28th. I did leave that open. There have been
Right.
districts that have chosen. So this was one of the questions that came up in many of the discussions, that there was questioning about the timing of this. Given that after each holiday break, whether it sometime be a weekend or a longer break, we've seen a significant rise in cases. And so there was some wondering about that. So I left that a bit open for discussion because we can decide that. We could decide to push this off for a week. We can decide to go with the date as noted by Desi and the governor, being February 28th.
And through the chair, I would even say, even before we go through a motion, I would like to make sure that we are all on the same page, that whatever should happen now, because our rates are very low, right? We're seeing maybe 1 to 2 cases a day. That does not mean that if at some point we have another major outbreak at a school, that we will not be right back here saying, I'm sorry, because we need to actually have teachers that can be in the building and function and provide important things like meal, after-school care. I need that to be very clear for whatever we decide, that this isn't yep, we're done with these forever.
Well, all of those discussions and changes could take place after a second, but if it's the will of the committee to discuss it beforehand, but we may not be discussing any change to the mandate if we don't have a motion to actually make that change.
So can we make the motion and then talk about it and amend if needed?
Well, yeah, the motion would be to address since there's not a date on there. But if you want to open it up to discussion now, that's fine. We'll
It's
just,
mostly just for the date that people feel comfortable with, because I would say I personally am okay with the 28th. However, I've had a lot of teachers in particular show concern specific to the spike that we always see right after a holiday, and that was specifically from teachers. Now, if the
That you heard from teachers?
Yes,
Yeah.
but if the AEA has already had a discussion and they have an official stance on what they feel is,
So they've not taken, to my knowledge, they've not taken a vote, per se.
okay.
But I did speak with the leadership of the AEA. I will tell you, I had no teachers reached out to me
Okay.
directly expressing concern about that date. Mostly what principals in the AEA are hearing is that teachers are ready for this change.
Okay.
So I feel like if there was a contingent that was very much against that, I think the AEA would have heard something, or I would have heard something directly from a teacher, because I hear from teachers all the time about things. So I think if this was something they were very concerned about, we would have heard that. Likewise, the nurses, they often hear things from people when it comes down to these types of things. And the nurses had not had any staff coming to them expressly concerned about this. And as I noted, the one concern I heard from the teacher was related to the playing of instruments in a band room, so.
Okay. I mean, and for my own personal, concerns have been allayed. I just wanted to make sure that, teachers felt like they also had a voice in
Right.
even how we decide on a date that we're going to vote on and deliberate on, so.
Well, since there's no date on there, during discussion after a second, we would have to actually put
Okay.
some sort of a date on there, otherwise it would just be
Okay.
sort of floating around out there for a future meeting, so.
Should we just put the date of the 28th and make that in the motion?
Yeah, and then we can change it if needed.
Start there at least?
I say we take the make the motion to lift the mandate, and then we'll discuss what the date is.
I'll make that motion to lift the school mask mandate for all students in all grades, allowing for students and staff to the ability to choose whether or not to wear a mask.
Do I
I'll
have
second that motion.
any discussion on that?
My thought is, the governor, the Department of Ed have all picked the 28th. I have no problem going along with them and go by that date. And I think if something goes wrong and we have a high COVID count, we just go back to mass. I mean, I would think that's just as easy as making a rule that we need it. I mean, but as long as we don't, and things stay well, I'm fine with taking them off on the 28th.
Through the chair, I agree. I think what we might need to look to our Department of Public Health and our nurses is what would the threshold be? And perhaps we don't need to make that.
Staff from the high school, and they are very clear that they want the masks gone as soon as possible.
Yes, I've
So,
heard that too.
Yeah, that was what I heard, but, I mean, and that was from the high school.
I mean, I totally understand it myself. I don't like sitting here wearing a mask. It's, but until we're sure it's safe, we gotta do that.
Well, and the thing is, everyone keeps saying the resilience of children, the resilience of children. Kids are not resilient. Kids have dealt with this for 2 years. I hate that word. And, as you've said, it's affected them. It has significantly affected them. And I think these work. But I also think that, you have a child in the schools who's asymptomatic, and they went through test and stay, and they came back positive for COVID. They're crying, they're hyperventilating. Why? Because they're now diagnosed with this thing that shut down the world. And they're looking around at all these other people in masks and themselves thinking, oh my gosh, I could die from this. We're not going to get rid of COVID. I mean, it's been a very long 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And I think they're psychological.
They've been out doing their own thing all summer, maskless, traveling, and everything else. At that point in time, just to give you a little history lesson, back in September, we were strongly considering, at least a few of us, if not the majority, going back maskless. And we said, let's just take a look at it. Let's see what it looks like for the next few weeks. Well, things took a turn for the worst. And it didn't matter, because 3 or 4 days later, DESE came back and said the masks are going back on, whether you like it or not. So that vote that we took that night to look at it again, 30 days later, that was pretty much a moot point, because we were putting the masks on. Is it real? Yes, it's absolutely real. I mean, and it's not about the students getting sick necessarily. It's about, to me, way back when we were canceling sporting events, we were canceling dances, that type of thing. It was about the spread. It was about bringing it home to your elderly family members, or even to your parents, because we've had a few people in town our age, my age, who didn't think they were going to make it home from the hospital, didn't think they were ever going to see their kids again, and they couldn't see their kids while they were in the hospital. So this was all very real, and we've always done the best that we could do with the information that we had. We have someone with a doctorate of nursing on this committee. We have someone with public health background. We have, 50-something years of teaching between the three of us, and Meg's done her share of teaching. So we have a lot of experience. We've always tried to do the best that we can by the residents, and always and especially by the children. That's what we're here for. We're here to advocate for them. And I said it back in September, it was going to kill me to put the masks back on them, because I was tired of seeing my own children, tired of seeing my own students, only seeing their eyes, only seeing their eyebrows, not knowing if they were smiling, not knowing if they were getting my poor tasted dad jokes. I know it was a really difficult thing. So I've been waiting for this moment, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm not willing to wait until after a vacation or a grace period. When the news came out from DESE for the 28th, I made up my mind right then and there, not based on any science, but based on the miserable experience of wearing these masks, even though I know it was the right thing to do. I made up my mind that day. So for me, it's the 28th.
Yeah, through the chair. I agree with everything you just said, George. I would even be reluctant to look at a threshold where we have everyone back in a mask, like this doomsday event. I don't know.
I think at this point,
I think they're gone, and if there is a rise, it's up to the parents to tell your kids to put your mask on, or the kid can choose to wear their mask. Until DESE makes us.
Well, but through the
Go
chair, if you
back
don't have a
through
parent
this.
advocating for that, I'm just trying to think of something that is, I guess, fair to everyone, and, if you have if a parent that's not kind of keeping tabs, I would feel bad if something happened on our watch to a child, because it is unfortunate, but some children have gotten very sick from this in our district. Very sick. So, and I understand we don't want anyone to live in fear. I certainly am not saying, we go up 0.5%, there you go. This would all be under the guidance of the Department of Public Health and our nurses.
Yeah. And I think, if I could, through the chair, it may be, we're certainly going to monitor this. If we start to see things accelerate, we're going to use some judgment, and it's not going to be a random judgment. I would have to speak with those folks to see if there is a way to determine what a threshold might be. I think that's the tricky part in all of this, right?
That's fair.
So to pick a number, I think is going to be really hard. But I think we know our buildings, we know the experiences we've been through, and the ones that we've made it through. I will say, if I can make a plea to the community, if children are sick, please keep them home.
Yeah.
I think if I could get that message home to families, it would go such a long way at keeping everybody healthy. And I don't know how to get it out any more than we have, but that would be the one thing that if we could spread that word, and everybody in the Auburn community would say, okay, my child doesn't feel well today, runny nose, sore throat, they're going to stay home. Next day they're fine, then they can come back in. But that's the tricky part. So I will certainly, I'm happy to pose that to the nurses and to the Board of Health as a point of discussion. I just don't know if there's a way to really know what that threshold's going to be, given each building and the circumstances around it.
And that's understandable. I don't mean, I know no one has a crystal ball. It's mostly that any decision that we make, no matter how much we personally might want to make it, just that we're being very diligent about, taking care of our own before it gets so bad, before we're to the point that we don't have enough teachers to open up the building.
Sure.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
And through the chair, we have the best nurses that I've ever worked with personally. I mean, I might be biased, but if they came on, they were like, we can't handle this right now, I would be more than happy to talk about whatever we need to talk about at that point.
Sure.
Unfortunately, I just don't think COVID's going away. I don't think it's something that is going to disappear. I think at this point, if we look at hospitalization rates and illness rates and all of that, it's so low. That's why the threshold to me, what might be challenging, but of course, if any of those nurses were like, we can't handle this right now.
Or maybe it's a,
them at that point,
sure.
then
And the
we'll
percentage
talk.
was an arbitrary thing. It's really just making sure we have our, kind of our finger on the pulse of whatever is going on, and that we don't wait till it's too late.
No, and all that monitoring.
25% of our kids are out of school in one day or something.
No, and all that monitoring that we've been doing all along, we're still gonna do that. You know, I'm still gonna do the reporting that we've done all along. So we will be keeping track of everything that we do. Plus the symptomatic testing, I mean, that's going to be another kind of different subset of data, even though we've been reporting that. It's all going to contribute to our next steps, but I do think that to pick a specific threshold is gonna be very difficult for us to do.
And that's fair.
I also want to know, you know, we still have plenty of PPE, right? So if, especially for our teachers, if there are some that are particularly nervous, we have plenty of KN95 masks that will be made available to them. Even though I do think the majority are just happier that they're not going to have to wear it. But we want anyone who might be nervous to be comfortable as well, right? So that we can all be productive and feel safe in our environment.
And I like the fact that we're checking with the Department of Health in Auburn and our own nursing staff. So we're not just making this decision randomly.
Right.
We're asking experts for guidance if there's a problem or whatever.
If I can say, there's no way I would have survived the last 2 years without the nurses and the Auburn Board of Health. So
Yeah.
they've been an amazing resource.
Can we make the
To
motion?
add a little bit to
Or-
my long-winded testimonial, Dot sort of piggybacking what she said about, you know, possible immune-compromised teachers or students or folks who may have someone at home who's immune-compromised, you know, that's something that would weigh on me heavily. Should something terrible happen, something, you know, tragic happen. Nevertheless, as bad as I feel about that, and I feel bad for that child who has to wear the mask while the other 19 kids in the room are not wearing masks. I feel terrible about that, or that parents may choose to leave them at home. That's not why I took on this position, so that I could make children feel left out and not a part of the group. We've always been inclusive. We've always tried to keep even our most high special needs students in the district at all costs, so they can be with their classmates. So that's never what this has been about, and there's a little bit of a risk involved. But again, I apologize for that. I apologize, you know, for the future. Should something terrible happen, it's just something that I feel we have to do at this point. The masks have just not been good to us. As Gail said, it's miserable as an adult wearing one. It makes it difficult to breathe. The biggest thing for me, again, is not seeing those smiles, not seeing the smiles of your classmates, of your teachers. I mean, I just think we're going to be back to a sense of normalcy that we haven't seen in some time. And we called it a sense of normalcy getting back into the schools again full-time, and that's great. But we really haven't hit that high note. I think we're going to be doing that after vacation. And I, for one, look forward to it and apologize ahead of time if this has a negative or ill effect on anyone in the district. I just think it's important to do so.
That wasn't my intent.
Oh, no,
To-
I'm not.
to
I'm just
say that
looking.
if somebody gets sick,
I'm just looking in
it's all
that
coming down to
direction.
you, George. No, no,
It's all on you.
no.
So,
I have a daughter that's teaching in eighth grade in another district, and sometimes there's stories that come home of new students that have moved into the district, and with the mask wearing, it seems like they've been left out, and they're friendless because they can't make those contacts, because they're not seeing the faces and seeing the smiles. And it's heartbreaking, because there's only so much a teacher can do when they can't mix with each other, when the kids can't mix with each other. So maybe this will be a blessing for everybody.
I would agree. Any other comments?
Through the chair, we've had 2 years of not being able to utilize nonverbal communication in our classrooms. I know with my students, just being able to look at them and see if they're understanding the content is huge. I'm sure
Yeah.
it's the same thing. So,
So we have a motion, we have a second. We've had lots of discussion. I would just ask that we amend that motion to state the 28th as the date of mask optional. Would you like to reread the motion or just make an addendum to the motion?
Yeah.
I'll make an addendum to the motion, lift the school mask mandate for all students on February 28th, allowing for students and staff the ability to choose whether or not to wear a mask.
Okay. Any further discussion on that?
Nope, sounds good.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
There's a vote. Thank you.
They're gonna be so excited.
Yeah.
I agree.
The teachers will too.
All right, moving on.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, that's me.
That's you, you're up.
Sorry about that. As requested at the last meeting on February 2nd, I've revised the recommended substitute teacher rates to reflect the concerns of the school committee. And I've included an updated fee schedule for you in your packet. We also are going to look at the fee schedule for building use. Mr. Fahey and I are going to be meeting this week, so that'll come at a later date. So as requested by the committee, we did look at that comparison to some of the other districts and push that up just a bit. Speaking with Mrs. Worsbicky and looking at some previous reports on how many subs we had in the building over the course of the year, which we had to go back a couple of years to get something that was somewhat normal. Seemingly, budget-wise, we will be fine with these increases as they are stated here. So that would be the day-to-day subs at 105, a certified teacher at 110, a retired district teacher at 115, long-term sub days 1 to 29 at 115, and then anyone days 31 to 90. That's always been, well, not always, but was already $150. And then anything over 90 days, they move to that bachelor's step 1.
Looks good.
I agree.
Did you have a comment though?
No, she gives it, it looks good.
I
say
just said it
agree.
looks good.
I would agree. I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to accept the recommended increase to the substitute rates of pay as presented.
Have a second.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
I just have a question. Do we have a number of how many subs we currently have? I thought that was gonna be included in the.
Oh, I'm sorry, you mean that are currently working for us?
Yeah, just so we have an idea of what kind, like budget-wise, how much of an increase. that
Yeah,
would-
so what I looked at, had to go back over 2 years. We looked at, well, actually, the 2019 year, and we just got a total number of days that we called subs in for. So I didn't bring that. That's what we used. We looked at that, the ones that came in as teachers, the ones that came in as IAs, and multiplied that by the new rates, and then compared that to what we had in the budget, and we're right in line with that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, sounds
sorry
good.
about that. I should have brought
No
my-
worries, I just wanted to make sure, yeah, it's not gonna, break the bank.
No, and Mrs.
obviously.
Worsbicky
I'm
was
sure
involved with that with
Cecilia
me as
would
well. Yeah,
know,
yeah.
So, okay, that's all.
Money well spent.
True that.
Any other concerns, questions, comments?
Oxford's rate is gonna kill us, but let's put that.
Need all the help they can get. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last meeting as well, we brought to you the school calendar. I cannot tell you that something that seemingly seems so simple to put together is just not. So anyway, we did another double check after the meeting. We did find that the October 7th day, which had been noted as a half-day, should have been in as a full day. So that was changed to a full day, and I ask for your acceptance of the calendar as is, and we will get that out to the public. So I apologize for the mistake.
I would entertain that motion.
I make a motion to accept the proposed school calendar for the 2022-2023 school year.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. There's a vote.
Thank you. I did want to share an update on the Bryn Mawr parking lot project. Mr. Fahey and I attended a planning board meeting on February 8th where this plan was discussed, which is a two-phase plan. The first phase includes the resurfacing of the current parking lot, a minor relocation of the dumpsters, and an extension of the parking lot area to the pine trees on the field side of the building. There's a driveway there, but it doesn't go right up to the pine trees, so they're looking to extend that a bit. That plan has already been in the CIP plan for some time, so that's not new. They're just making sure that they have their ducks in a row to get that done properly. And I think there's a lot of collaboration with the town with paving projects to get that done, hopefully this summer. There also is discussion about Phase 2, which is the addition of the parking area at the far end of the Bryn Mawr Field, down towards Swanson Road. If you know, there's a little parking area there, along with the addition of a driveway along the back side of that field that would then join up near where the playground area is into the side driveway of Bryn Mawr School. This could be used for drop-off and pickup. As you know, we've had numerous traffic issues around Bryn Mawr School with cars parking. There's no longer any parking on either side of Swanson Road, so parents are parking down, walking the kids across the field. This would allow it to be a drive-through. There would be gates associated with it. That's some of the discussion that's at the planning board now, to make sure that cars couldn't access that area during the school day. And they would be opened and closed by the custodian for safety purposes. But this is just exploratory now, at this point, to see the feasibility of it, to see if the planning board would support it, and to see, get some good solid cost structures on that. So again, just a feasibility study on that Phase 2 part, but thought, and I did share the plans with that project in your packet.
I think it'll be important to involve as many residents as we can in these discussions and alert them to when those planning board meetings will be, because they may not know otherwise, and I don't know how we would go about that. I'm not necessarily talking about parents of students in our system, but also the people who have been affected by those two schools and the traffic jams and the parking in front of the driveways and all of the reasons why we're looking at this study right now. I think it's important that somehow, I know that there are no public notices out there, but we need to think about ways that we can inform the residents as well.
I do think, Mr. Chair, that the abutters were notified of this last planning board meeting directly.
Oh, good.
So anyone that's considered an abutter, right? So somebody further down the street may not, but anybody directly associated there would be. And I think if this goes to a next discussion, I think we from the school department would figure out who those folks are and make sure everybody got a letter about that, because I agree with you, the more people involved in that, the better.
And
It's
so
within
many of
200
them have been
feet.
so patient with us over the years.
Yes.
Some not so much, and I can't say that I blame them in some of these cases, but for all involved, I think that, we should do our due diligence to make sure that they're notified of these meetings. Did you have something, Dot?
Oh, no, I think it's within 200 feet of any point, of any, like even breaking ground or any of the intersections. I think that's what I read.
Right.
So it is a large swath of direct abutters that would have been notified, but yeah, I agree, we should certainly let people know in other ways as well.
Excellent, thank you for that.
I have a question concerning that, yes. The new roadway that goes like behind all of the land, and then it looks like it goes between, like it hugs along the building there?
Yeah, and we're in between the building and the trees. There's already a driveway there on that side of the building.
Okay. I was gonna say, because as the former principal of that school, do you think this is a good plan?
I think it would be a godsend to that building.
Okay.
Yeah.
Parking was always so difficult,
Yeah, there
and
was
making
nothing.
sure that any kind of traffic flow was safe.
Yeah.
This really puts that there just for the times of arrival and dismissal, and with some very specific gating, completely eliminates access for any other time during the day, right? Because that is a play area for children, and the playground area is there as well. I think it would be a great addition. And as well, by paving that lot at the far end of the Bryn Mawr Field, that's used by a lot of folks that use the fields for soccer or baseball or
Yeah.
those kind of things. So it would add to the community as well to have that paved. And there would be handicap spaces, a sidewalk area there, and all of that.
Yeah,
More
it
like
wasn't really my question. I agree with the whole parking lot. I guess it's just that road that runs along the land in the back. But if you said there's gonna be plenty of ways to block it off, I'm thinking when the kids are at the playground, it kind of runs right between the
Yeah,
two.
so the gates they talked about, so where the cars would be parked, at the end of the parking lot, there would be a gate there. And if you know Bryn Mawr School, the parking lot that runs along the side of the building comes out into the front driveway. There's gonna be another gate there.
Okay.
Particularly that would be closed on weekends as well, because they talked about if it's not closed at both ends, right? Somebody could come in, drive, even though arrows are gonna all be going out that way, somebody would pull in the other way. So it would be gated in both places on weekends as well, so.
Great.
Good.
Yeah, I like it. It would be great. You kids can ride their bikes through there
Yeah.
on the weekends and stuff, so.
Yeah.
And it's not a mud pit anymore.
Right, yeah.
I know,
It's
it's
pretty
pretty
muddy over
rough
there.
there right now.
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion on that? Now move on to new business.
Okay, Mrs. Worsbicky and I met with Town Manager Jacobson and CFO Kazanovich. They have tentatively said that the Auburn Finance Committee will meet on March 2nd, which would require Mrs. Worsbicky and I to be there. That's our next scheduled school committee meeting. So wondering if we can, should cancel our meeting for that evening
Oh,
so that we can attend the Finance Committee meeting.
Would we reschedule for some time that week, or would that be, hold off until the following week? I mean,
So from what I knew historically, typically it's canceled and we move to the next meeting. But if the committee feels they'd like to reschedule for another night that week, we can do that too.
I'm fine with pushing it off the 2 weeks, and if something comes up in the meantime, we can always call an emergency meeting.
Yes.
Agreed.
so March we'd only meet on the 16th, unless there's an emergency of some sort.
Yes.
Works for me.
All right, I would entertain that motion. I went against my own rule there and had the discussion before the second, sorry.
We'll forgive you, George. I
I'll
make
make
a
a mo-
motion, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, no, you go.
Let's
I
not
make a
fight over
motion
it.
to cancel the school committee meeting scheduled for March 2nd to allow Dr. Chamberlain and Ms. Worsbicky attend the Town of Auburn Finance Committee meeting.
It's not rude.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It is a vote. Moving on.
The next thing is an Office of Civil Rights website review. So several years ago, prior to my tenure as Assistant Superintendent, evidently there had been a claim put in with the Office of Civil Rights that our website was not accessible. Mr. Bouvier was aware of it and knew that we would be hearing from them, and lo and behold, nearly 3 years later, we did. So he and I and Mrs. Elliott from our tech department met with them, and they really had very minor findings, and actually were very complimentary about our website. A few minor things related to our calendar in particular, that if you use a reader because you have vision issues, you cannot read that calendar. And so what they suggested was we simply take the list of dates that are underneath each little calendar section and make just a list that says, you know, this date is the first day of school, and put them in a simple document because a reader can follow down a document like that. So they are also working with, thank you. They're also working with Campus Suite, who is our website company, to kind of make some changes to the template that will make sure that when you put in a website, it automatically underlines, because an underline will signify to a reader that it is a link. So some minor things like that. And I was actually a little nervous about the meeting, and it was really more compliments than anything, that we had very little to change, and I think it's really going to make our website better. So it was some good feedback.
Good.
Great.
I'm working to streamline some of the communication we have with families, trying to get more information out on Facebook. Seemingly, that's where lots of people pick up their information more readily, around our, some of the community announcements and those kind of things. We're going to put those out once a month rather than every Friday, because it's a lot of repeat when it goes from week to week. So we'll still send them out via a one call, but we'll also post them on Facebook. And Mrs. Elliott's working on setting up a special area of the website so people will know. If I need to know what's going on, this is where all the postings are, so they can find those as well. So we're trying to clean up our one call, those kind of things, to get them more streamlined and make sure people who want to be in there are there, and those that don't aren't. So a lot of work around that. So more to come, but I think it will make it a better process for families. We also received a donation from the General Federation of Women's Club. The Federation of Women's Club donated Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black History by Vashti Harrison to Packagug School. And it's a wonderful addition to their school library. We'd like to accept that with gratitude.
I would entertain that motion.
Make a motion to accept with gratitude the donation of Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black History to Packagug Library.
Have a second?
Second.
Had you had a chance to look at that book, Dr. Chamberlain?
I had not. They just really recently got it in like the last week or so, but I will the next time I am at Packagug School.
Okay. Just want to keep an eye on things, that's all. I've never heard of the book and just want to make sure that it's appropriate. I appreciate the donation, of course, but hopefully the book's properly vetted before the students.
Certainly,
that-
Mrs. Stanek would have done that, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 There's a vote. Thank you. And we now move on to teaching and learning. I will go back to Dr. Chamberlain. again.
Yes, and parents were sent out, we received our DESI report cards for 2021. I will say that DESI has updated how the report cards are shown on their website, and they show some great information. I encourage you, I didn't include them all here because it really is a link-based thing where you can search for certain subgroups, student age levels, schools, subject areas. There's a whole host of things you can search for when you go through to these links. So I encourage you to do so. They were all sent out to our families via email, and they are also posted on our website, the links to the report cards. So I encourage folks to take a look at them. And we actually use them in some of our conversations about how our schools are doing because they're so easily accessible. So just for information that they are there and available to you.
Excellent. And we now move on to business and financial. Do we have anything for that, or are we going to hold off?
No, Mrs. Worsbicky, there was an issue with Munis, and she was unable to print her report, so she's going to report again at the next meeting.
Okay. And we do need an executive session, so I would entertain a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss the bargaining position with non-union personnel that could be compromised if discussed in open session. We will not return to open session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Dr. McCrillis?
Yes.
Ms. Holloway?
Yes.
Ms. Harrington?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mr. Scobie, yes. There's a vote. Good night, everyone.
Night.